So it's the end of the day now. It's dark outside. So I'm gonna sit in my little easy chair right here. Ah, and just kind of ponder life for a moment. Something I like to do now and then. I never want to kind of let that go as busy as life can get. And I want to pose a question that I think about from time to time. It's actually an extension of some of the prior issues that we've talked about in some of those other videos, but on an even more fine grained level. And it's kind of the question of, so that thing right there in front of me, it's a love seat, right? But do I actually even see the love seat? Like, what is it exactly that I experience? And the answer to that question is, of course, complex. But at the end of the day, I think it's fairly safe to say that I don't actually see the seat. So what happens is the light that's in that room, this room right here, it bounces off of everything that's in it in such a way that it hits my eye, creates a certain kind of neural code. And really, that neural code is all that I know about the world around me. And I've spent my whole life trying to figure out exactly what that neural code is. I know that every time it's a certain way, that there's this thing out there that's kind of soft and cushy, and it looks nice, and I can sit on it, and when I do, it makes me feel good. But all I actually know is just what that pattern is in that skull of mine at any given moment in time. And that's basically all I know about the world around me. I've tried to figure out what that code is, and you try to do the same thing every day of your life. And you've come to something that you probably feel is a reasonable interpretation of the world, but don't ever lose sight of the fact that that's what it is. It's an interpretation. None of us actually has any direct access to anything in the world. And in fact, the fact that I exist in a three-dimensional space is really just another interpretation. So there's just a pattern of electricity in this skull of mine right now. And that pattern, I mean, you can think about it in three dimensions if you want, because my brain is a three-dimensional object. But that's kind of a forced way of thinking about it. Really, you can think about it like a flat computer chip if you wanted to. It's just a pattern of signals. So there's nothing three-dimensional about it. But I've learned over the course of my life that variation in that pattern of signal corresponds to an experience that is on, say, both sides of my nose, front and back, right? Back of my head, front of my head. And on each side of my body where one of my arms can reach out to. And so that's kind of my own mental understanding of three dimensions, right? It can be on different sides of anchor points to my body. So that probably sounds like a whole lot of complex gibberish right now. Hopefully by the end of the course, it'll make some more sense. But just to kind of give you a starting point that I want kind of circulating in your brain as you go through this course is really what we're ultimately trying to understand together is the biological processes by which I formulate my own understanding of the world around me. And that is fundamentally an interpretation. It's not something that I ever have direct access to. And even the mere fact that I exist in a three-dimensional space is really me just trying to make sense of a pattern of activation in my brain that you don't even really have to think about itself in 3 dimensions. It's just my understanding of it that feels like it exists in 3 dimensions. And that's really profound, I think, when you ponder it. Because what that tells you is that you take a tremendous amount for granted every day. One of the most simple of which I talked about in the intro video very briefly, is that, well, everything in this room I can see, or I can hear, or I can touch. I have complete access to what exists in the world. And, you can have dramatic interpretations of a failure of that. So, sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like extra reality, I'm blanking on that word. Paranormal. There we go. Paranormal. I'm not advocating for the paranormal, but what I am advocating for is that you have an incomplete window into the world. There's probably more in this room than I have access to. So think about what that might be. There's things out there in the world you've been missing your whole life, and you may never be capable of actually experiencing it your whole life. What could that be? What are we missing every day? I wish I knew the answer to that question. Hopefully I'll have a better understanding of it by the time I retire.